Welcome back, everybody, to another presentation from Holborn Assets. We're doing a webinar this week on how to top up your state pension. There's some rules that are about to change in the UK relating to the state pension schemes. This has caused a big panic. Lots of people are reaching out right now to try and contact HMRC. They want to know about how they can top up their state pension for maybe years they've missed and things like that. So we're going to cover everything like that here today. Without further ado, we're going to move on to just give you a short intro on what to expect here. I'm going to just tell you who Holborn are. I know many of you have been invited by your advisor, and I've invited many of my clients and people that they've referred me to this session. But for those of you who don't know us, I'll give you a brief on who we are, and I'll also just introduce myself and my qualifications, so you know that I'm qualified to talk about what we're going to discuss here today. We're going to then talk about what the state pension is, what it is not, and just give you some state pension facts, and then I'll talk about the eligibility criteria and some very important things on how to meet the minimum criteria, which you need to be aware of, I think. We're then going to give you a guide on how to go and check your national insurance record using the gov.uk website. It's quite straightforward. The links are embedded in this presentation, but it's very helpful for you. It's a nice tool for you to be able to get in and check how your national insurance record is looking. What we're going to then move on to is the main reason for the presentation is to talk to you about what are voluntary national insurance contributions. Now, when I moved overseas, I've been an expat for many, many years. Originally, I went to South Africa and in the Far East, and then I've been in the UAE since 2000 and late 2007. So I am an expat myself, and I remember people talking to me about the state pension and, are you topping up and things like that. And I thought, why on earth would I ever want to do that? This is ridiculous. I'm not having to pay tax in the UK anymore. So why would I pay contributions to top up my state pension income when I'm not there? I may as well use the money for something more, productive and get it invested and be able to get the money back later on with some growth. But what I didn't realize is how much voluntary contributions actually cost. And they're a fraction of the cost of you paying if you're a tax resident in the UK paying under PAYE. So I'll cover all of this, and then we'll show you how you actually do this, what you need to do. There is a way you can do it via HMRC portal, but there's also a way you can do it manually. I'll explain them both to you. Then, the reason we're getting a massive turnout for these at the moment is because there's some changes that were due to come in on the 6th of April. There was such a rush of applications going into HMRC that the Pension Centre was simply not able to handle them. So they had to postpone the deadline for people being able to top up. So that's been pushed back to the 31st of July. But there's some important changes that are going to affect how you can backdate and the amount of contributions you can backdate by. So this is really why there is a certain sense of urgency to us doing these webinars at the moment. We've been talking about this for quite some time. It's been known that this was going to change for the last couple of years, but really now it's now or never if you want to backdate by more than a certain number of years. So this also will come to later on. And then I'll tell you how you can contribute. I'll show you what form you need to complete, and we'll do a Q&A. Usually when I'm doing this, it takes about 35 minutes to get to the sort of end of the presentation, and then we'll do the Q&A session. Okay. I don't have any questions so far in the chat, so I'm going to press on and move forward. This is just a quick introduction to who Holborn Assets are. So Hobart Assets is a family-run business. It was founded in 1998. It's one of the largest offshore financial planning consultancies now in the world. So we've got 15 offices across 13 countries. So we've grown at a phenomenal rate. We also have 8 regulatory licenses. We're licensed in the UK by the Financial Conduct Authority. It's arguably one of the most heavily regulated jurisdictions in the world. A few months ago, we also got another license in the UAE under the Dubai Financial Services Authority. We also have a license here under the Insurance Authority. So we are one of the few companies also to have licenses in Saudi Arabia. So, we've got a good reputation. We're regulated as financial advisors. We all have to be qualified to work here. There's a whole portfolio or suite, if you like, of different solutions that we can help you access. And if you need any of these solutions at all, or you just want to talk to a financial advisor and say, help, this is my situation, what do you think I should do? This is where a member of our team will be able to assist you locally, wherever you are, okay? Now, the final thing I just want to mention about Hobart is we have just surpassed 2,000 positive reviews on a rating site called Trustpilot. So these are genuine reviews. You can see, you can check. We've been managing people's investments, their portfolios, their insurance, and things like that for many, many years. So this is a great track record to have in our industry, and we're very, very proud of it. Just a quick intro to who I am. So my full name is Stephen James Mitchell. I'm an MBA. I have an MBA specialism in finance. I left school and went to work in Barclays Bank. So ever since then, 1997, I've been working in financial services. I've been a qualified financial advisor since the mid 2000s, and I moved out to the UAE in 2007 and set up as a financial planner here. I actually worked in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Bahrain a lot, and also out in the Far East. So I've got a lot of experience of helping expats in financial planning. I'm fully qualified under the UK rules and the international rules that we have to adhere to. And my area of specialty, if you like, is the tax planning and international pensions and things like that for expats and international investors who are looking to invest money in the UK, or perhaps have money, or perhaps have assets in the UK and need tax planning advice for that. So that's my particular field of expertise. So now moving on to talking about the state pension. One thing I just want to make clear is that people's state pension is not some sort of pot of money that they're paying into, which is their pot that has a certain value. When you're paying your national insurance contributions to HMRC, you're actually paying for people that are retired right now, and you're paying for their state pensions. Okay, and the future generations, our kids, are going to be paying for our state pensions when we retire. So basically, how you earn state pension entitlement is through qualifying years of national insurance contributions that you can make either through your employer or through voluntary contributions. And there's 4 different types of voluntary contributions, which we'll discuss a bit later on. Now, the state pension has just risen. It went up by 10% this year to match cost of living increases and inflation. So it's a pretty big hike. It's now a huge, hefty sum of £10,600 per year. So obviously, this is not enough to retire on by any means. It's probably not even half the amount of money that people were required to retire, given what is reported by the Office of National Statistics to be the average cost of living in the UK. So it's actually less than half of what you need. However, it is guaranteed for life. It is going to increase every year with cost of living increases. So, if you're going to retire this year, it will be £203 per week. Next year, it will be a bit more, and so on and so forth. And when you reach retirement age, whenever that is in the future, depending on how far away that is, it could be a lot more than what it is today. Now, right now, the state pension age is 66, but unless you're going to retire in the next few years, it's going to go up to 67. And government have just announced quite recently, I think end of March, that in 2044, they're planning to put this up to 68. So they're increasing this. Obviously, this is also linked to kind of mortality tables and the life expectancy and things like that. But this is just to give you a bit of background about what is the state pension. Now, let's talk about now, how do you qualify for the state pension? So, assuming that you're not going to retire before 2026, you will be under the rules of what is called the new state pension. So the new state pension requires you to have a minimum number of years of contributions over the whole lifetime of 10 years. So beforehand, if you'd paid 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or any number of years, you would get some entitlement. That's no longer the case. So if you pay 9 years, 6 months worth of national insurance contributions, you aren't going to get the state pension, unfortunately. And this is very, very important for a lot of people that have worked in the UK for a few years earlier on in their life, but then moved overseas, or people that were from overseas. You know, we've got a lot of Indians living in the UAE, and many, many Indians with doctors living in the UK working in the NHS, and then they've moved back to India or to places like the UAE where they live now, and they have accumulated pension contributions for 4, 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. Unless these guys top up to 10 years, they ain't going to get the state pension. So that's the first and foremost important thing. And it obviously is linked quite importantly to topping up the state pension if you're working here as an expat, because many of us got out of the UK in our 20s or 30s, and we've been here ever since. So we might not have topped up that 10 years. Now, the next thing that happened when they introduced the new state pension is that the minimum number of years of contribution that you need to get a full state pension is 35 years. So that means that throughout your working life, let's say you started working at 25, you basically, if you work to 60, then you've got enough qualifying years to get the full state pension. Okay, if you pay more than 35 years, you don't get any extra benefit. Okay, but if you pay less than 35 years, then it's prorated. So I've given an example here of somebody who has paid 20 years of contributions, just to give you a kind of a working example of how it would work. What you do is you take your annual state pension, as if it was the full state pension, as it is today, you divide that number by the number of years that you can contribute, which is 35, and then times it by the number of years that you have contributed, which in this case is 20. And in this particular example, this individual will be left with having a state pension of £6,057 a year, or £116.49 per week. So hopefully that's fairly clear. It's just a straight pro rata example. But in case you're struggling at all, in case you have any issues, I put a little link here that you can just click on, and it links through to a tool here on the Pension Centre, where you can just forecast your state pension. So you put here how many years you've got, how many years you've made, contributions you've made so far. 17 years I put, and it tells you there what your calculation will be. So dead simple for everybody. Now let's just go back to my slide. Hopefully you can see that. Please, in case I'm not showing the slide now or there's any sort of technical errors at all, just you know, share a message or something to inform me. Now, let's move on to checking your national insurance record. Okay, so again, I've put the link here for everybody who's attending. So dead simple, just click the link. You can actually go to the page on the national on the HMRC or gov.uk, should I say, website, where you can check your record. So you just click start now and you begin. Now, assuming you are registered with gov.uk, then you'll be able to log straight in with your government gateway ID. So if you are unable to register for your government gateway ID, what you're going to have to do in order to obtain it is click to register, and then HMRC are going to ask you some questions that they need you to validate to confirm your identification. So these are some of the questions that they're likely to ask you. Now, for most people who've still got some sort of good footprint in the UK or they've left quite recently, it should be fairly simple. Okay, but if you've been, away from the UK for a long time now, and you're not able to answer some of these security questions, you're not going to be able to go through the validation process and register for your government gateway ID. So if that is the case, don't panic. You can still go through the whole process that we're going to discuss, but it will require for you to do things manually rather than be able to log in through this system. Okay. Now, just in case you're not familiar with this system, or you're not sure if you've got the government gateway ID, this is the unified government system for most of the government services in the UK now. I thought when I saw it, it was quite a slick system. It is quite difficult to navigate, which is why I put these links for people, but it's the same system that you would use if you want to renew a passport, register a birth, get a new driving license through. So chances are that if you have had to do any of those things in the past, I guess maybe 3 to 5 years, I'm not sure when they introduced this exactly, but you would have used the government gateway portal and you will have a government gateway ID. And if you do, then fantastic. Now, let's assume now that you've got your government gateway ID, what you'll be able to do if you follow this link and you go and you do your security questions is you're going to be able to see what contributions you've made and what contributions you haven't made, and how many years you've got left to contribute until your projected retirement age, and how many years you need to pay to basically top up. So I've taken a screenshot from inside a portal here just to show you what it looks like. Here you can see I've sort of circled it. It might be a bit slow, a bit small, so you'll see it perhaps a bit clearer if you get this these slides a bit later on. But I would encourage you to, just go in and try and have a look yourself. You will be able to see your own records, and you will be able to do your own pension forecast and check your own contributions and everything else. So it's quite useful to have. Now, you can see next to each year, it says, for instance, well, this record was not available. The one below, it says the year is not full. So it says view details. Assuming you clicked on view details, this is what will pop up. So it shows you, and actually this is I got this screen print when I was doing these presentations back the middle of last year. So this voluntary contribution might have increased a bit, but it shows you what voluntary contribution you need to pay. Now, we're going to talk about the different classes of voluntary contributions in the next couple of slides. So don't pay too much attention to this £824 at the moment, because hopefully you're going to be able to qualify to pay much, much less than that. I'll come to that in a second. Okay, but this is just to give you an idea of how to check your national insurance record. So before I go on to talking about what class of national insurance contributions you can make, okay, I just want to quickly show you this link. I'm going to click it now. All right, which is there's loads of these calculators on the internet you can find. So I've just picked this one kind of at random and tested it a few times. Seems to work properly. This is called the salarycalculator.co.uk. There are other examples, but why am I showing you this? Well, I just want to show you how much contribution you would need to pay if you were in the UK right now paying tax under PAYE. So let's just give you a very rough example. We've got let's say a guy who's earning £50,000 in the UK. So he's not in Scotland. There's a different, I think, slightly different set of tax rules there. So let me click here and calculate, and we'll see now what the breakdown is. So, you can play around with this when I send you these slides, but you'll see here that it's got the gross income 50,000, taxable income 37,430. The amount of tax this guy would need to pay which is around £7,500. Okay, and his national insurance contributions. His national insurance contributions, so he's only 50,000, are going to be £4,491 per year. Okay, that's what he'd need to pay if he was getting paid under PAYE. And bear in mind, this guy's got no say over whether or not he can pay this. It's just automatically deducted at source, and he's receiving the net amount each month. And all this money is going to pay for the people that are currently retired and the people that are on other types of different benefits that are covered under national insurance. So essentially about 9% of this guy's income, if he's only £50,000 a year, which is not a big income in the UK these days, he's going to be paying about £4,500 in state pension contributions. Now, let me just jump back to my slides here, and we'll talk about voluntary contributions. Now, there are only two types of voluntary contributions you can pay if you're an expat. Okay, they're either class 2 or class 3. So I've put these here just to give you an example. Now, when somebody told me this, it literally blew my mind. I could not believe it. I thought it was too good to be true. I'm still finding people facing exactly the same as I found when I found out about this first. When I'm talking to them, they cannot believe how little the voluntary contributions are. So just in case you want to prove this, I've also put the link to validate this on gov.uk website, so you can check this in your own time. So let's go back to this example we just had. A guy in the UK paying 50,000, he's earning 50,000 a year, he's paying 4,500 in national insurance contributions to get him 1 year's worth of entitlement for state pension in the future. Okay, well, let's say that you are an expat and you had a minimum of 3 years of qualifying contributions which you'd accumulated in the UK prior to moving overseas. Okay, you are in a very fortunate position. So if you're working right now as an expat in the UAE, for instance, where I am, you would be eligible to pay class 2 national insurance contributions. So you're eligible if you're employed or you're self-employed, and you paid a minimum of 3 years of qualifying contributions in the UK before you left. So that's class 2. Now, class 2 is £3.45 per week. That's what your national insurance contributions will be. So if you times that by 52 weeks, it's £179.40 per year. Okay. So old Joe Bloggs back in the UK, your counterpart who's working for your company back home and you've transferred out here, he's paying £4,500 and you're paying £179, and you're getting exactly the same entitlement as he is. Okay, so this is where it's an absolute no-brainer. Okay, now assuming you're not employed or self-employed, you're anything else. You're let's say you're living in UAE where I am, and you're an investor and you're living on a retirement income or something like that. Unfortunately, you're not going to qualify for class 2 because you have to be employed or self-employed. But then you're going to qualify for class 3. Now, this is a fair bit more expensive. It's over £900 a year, but still, it's a hell of a lot less than you pay if you were in the UK as a UK resident. And it's also you're going to break even on your contributions in the first few years alone, even if you paid class 3 contributions, because what your entitlement will buy you is a pension for life, not just for 1 year after you retire. So in class 2 contributions, for every £179.40 you're contributing, effectively you're getting a state pension benefit of about £302 per year. Okay, so still it makes sense to pay class 3 contributions. Although if you're going to backdate for 10 or 15 years, it's going to be a bigger chunk of change than you're doing the class 2 contributions. We'll talk about how much in a moment. Now, oddly enough, and I've never managed to get my head around this, class 2 contributions, even though they're less, actually get you eligibility for more benefits as opposed to just the state pension. You also get entitlement to what we would call the job seekers allowance, I guess, or the dole money when I was living in the UK. That's what we used to call it. And incapacity benefit. And also you get attendance allowance and bereavement benefits. So there are more benefits to paying class 2 national insurance contributions than there are for paying class 3, on top of you getting just the state pension, even though you're paying a fifth of the price. So hopefully this illustrates the value add of topping up your state pension here. Now, I just want to now put this now into just a kind of a walkthrough in terms of the financials on this. So let's assume you're working or you're self-employed as an expat. That means that you're eligible for class 2, provided you were working in the UK and contributing for 3 years prior to expatriation. Okay, so for every £179 you pay, you will get £302.86 per year in today's money. Obviously, by the time you retire, that could be a lot more than £302 from the age of 67 or the rest of your life. It's going to increase every year with the cost of living, and it's guaranteed by the British government. So basically, in the first year alone, you're in the black and you're going to get that forever. So it's free money here. So as I say, I mean, I've been spreading the word about this for a very long time. Obviously, this is not something that Holborn or financial advisors profit from. We're nothing related to the HMRC, but it's just absolute common sense for anyone who's working as an expat. They should do this, and it's going to cost such a small amount of money that it will be negligible, and the benefit they'll get from it is phenomenal. So what's going to change? Why are so many people inquiring about this at the moment? Why is there a bit of a fuss going on? How come there's a backlog at HMRC? What's this all about? Well, it's all to do with the fact that in 2020, in the COVID times, the government changed the rules on backdated contributions. So up until 2020, 2021 tax year, you were able to only backdate the last 6 tax years of contributions. So during the COVID era, government took the cap off this, and they allow people to backdate back to 2006. So whereas you'd actually only be able to backdate for the last 6 years, you can actually currently backdate for the last 16 years. So if someone spent a large amount of time out of work or out of the UK and not contributing, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Now, HMRC did actually state very clearly that they were only lifting this cap on the 6-year contribution backdate for I think initial 1 year, but they extended it to 2022, 2023 tax year, and then it was going to stop. Now, because so many people were applying to backdate in March, just before the end of the tax year, when the deadline was going to come into force, HMRC sent a memo. You can click the link if you want to read it here. But they announced that they're going to give a grace period until the 31st of July for anyone who wants to top up. This does not help people. Don't think that you've got another 3 months to get your head around this and submit it. There is a huge backlog. We've been submitting applications from middle of last year, and there were people that were applying in October, November, December that still haven't even had an acknowledgement from HMRC. And if you try to call HMRC, And there are contact numbers which are, again, they'll be shared with you in this presentation, to check on the status of your application to Backdate, or even to reach them for any other query. The call waiting times are over an hour. It's absolutely insane. So it really is a huge backlog. Now, what would benefit you from backdating for these 10 years? Well, it's actually a massive amount of money that you would stand to miss out on if you can't backdate those years. Let me just quantify that here by giving you this example. So let's just assume that you're going to top up after the 6th of April 2023. I know some of you who've attended have actually already applied to top up, and it's in process. So you should theoretically be able to top up under the previous contributions, which were, I think, 30 pence per week less. Okay, but assuming you're topping up at the rate of £179.40 per year, 10 years worth of contributions are going to cost you £1,794. Okay, so that's what it's going to cost you for backdating those contributions from, let's say, 2006 to 2016. Now, of course, if you want to contribute after 2016, you can do. You can contribute any number of years from 2006 onwards. Okay, but what is at stake here is the number of years from 2016. Sorry, from 2006 through 2016. Those are what's going to disappear on the 31st of July. And in fact, they were never there before, so this was just a temporary thing. But that's what's up for grabs, basically. So buying those years will actually give you, every year you buy, it's going to give you £3,028 a year for life in today's money. Okay, so you're making your money back in the first year alone, and you're not only that, you're going to get that every year for the rest of your life. Now, assuming you live for up until the average life expectancy, let's say you live for up until the age of 82, okay, just for the sake of this demonstration, then that £1,794 that you've paid now is actually worth to you, in today's money, £45,420. So forget bloody Bitcoin and all these other things. I mean, this is the best return on investment ever, and it's backed by the British government. So honestly, there's nothing like this. Now, the only thing that's so frustrating about it is the state pension is fairly minimal. So once you've made your maximum contribution, that's it. You're not getting any more, unfortunately. But if you've not made them, then this, in terms of value for money and return on investment and everything else, is, you just got to do it. There's no two ways about it. So that's a working example. Now I want to talk to you. I'm surprised so far because we've got loads of attendees, but there've been no questions apart from questions that I've actually covered in presentation so far. So please, guys, if you have any questions, just drop them in the Q&A, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation, and give you any information you need. So what I'm going to just quickly introduce to you now is how to actually do this. Okay, so you noticed if you went into your HMRC portal and you actually had selected the year that you missed, and you asked HMRC portal how much you need to pay to top up, the default option in there is class 3. It's assuming that you're making voluntary contributions and you're not an expat. So the rules are different for expats. So you have to go about doing this the manual, paper-based way still. There's no way around it, unfortunately. So what you're going to need to do is get a hold of this CF83 form. Again, it's embedded here. this form is actually part of a much larger form, which is this NI38 form. Now, I put the link straight to the CF83 form because the NI38 form is lengthy. It's, you know, packed full of completely irrelevant information for most people. And the only part of it that's important is the last 2 pages, which essentially is your CF83 form. So what we're gonna basically quickly discuss is how to populate this here, and then we're kind of pretty much done apart from the Q&A. But it's very straightforward. Okay, only 2 pages of information. You have to put your previous employer's details or your last, you know, if you're self-employed, your last employment or self-employment details from when you were in the UK. You have to put your date of when you last made national insurance contributions. You know, if you're a bit vague on that, don't worry, just put the year in, or even if you don't get the year right, HMRC will come back and correct you, I mean. And then you have to put, you know, where you're staying now, who you work with abroad. Okay, so that's here. Okay. If you're not employed abroad and you're going to go for the class 3 voluntary contributions, you would leave that bit. Okay. Now you can select which contributions you wish to pay, class 2 or class 3. And there is a direct debit. Now I'm going to assume you're probably not going to set up a direct debit for some really nominal amount to be deducted from your bank account every week. So probably what you're going to do if you're you know, an expat living overseas like me is you're going to tick the box here to say you're going to make an annual payment, and you'll do that by a bank transfer. Now, assuming you don't have a UK address or you want somebody to handle the whole process of this for you, you can fill in this bit here to appoint an agent. So there are lots of tax advisors and chartered accountants in the UK who are registered with HMRC as agents, and they can be your agent here. If you've already got one, you can appoint them. Or if you want us to help you, you can talk to your advisor, and we can put you in touch with an agent and they can help you. They charge a very nominal fee for doing this. It's not a huge amount of work for doing it for you, but it saves you the headache, and also it also gives you some way for the HMRC to correspond with you if you're living overseas, because as a lot of us know, you know, it's not easy to receive communications when they're sent just by normal mail if you're living outside of the UK. So that's the that's an option that we would recommend for many people. There is the address on where to send it. I would strongly recommend you send this by courier. Do not send it just in the normal mail. You know, ideally you want evidence in case, you know, your application is still pending and the deadline's passed, that you've at least submitted the application, because to my knowledge, as long as the application is submitted prior to the deadline, even if it takes HMRC another 6 months to respond, you've done your bit and you're going to be captured under these current rules. But obviously it would help you no end if you have evidence that they actually have your application. And as I say, it can be very difficult to contact them by phone or by, you know, there's a portal inside the gov.uk where you can send messages. But the turnaround time, I think, on the messages is 2 weeks and upward of an hour or so waiting time or on the contact center. So you definitely want to do this. So here's your form, and like, I mean, I've helped many of my clients do this. It's really simple and straightforward. It's embedded here, so you can follow it. Now, I just want to there's a couple more points that I want to talk about, and then I'll take the Q&A. Now, this is about topping up the state pension, because many people have moved abroad and they've not paid any contributions whatsoever. What we find regularly as financial advisors, it's not just the state pension that people are not paying into. Many people are not paying into any pension or any type of retirement plan whatsoever. Or if they are, they're paying hardly any, or they have a retirement plan that they stopped paying it a long, long time ago when they left, and they've done absolutely nothing since. So this is a massive, massive problem. There's a worldwide crisis in developing countries of governments going to be facing problems being able to help support people in retirement. And when many, many people are not contributing to the state pension or any other type of a pension scheme, they're literally setting themselves up for poverty in retirement. It's horrendous, but so many people do this, unfortunately. And I have many, many clients over the years that I've met who, they've got very, very good jobs. They've got excellent expat packages. They've lived here for many, many years, but they're going back to the UK and they're coming back here and they're saying, look, how is it that my friends are getting ahead of me? What are they doing that's different? And what they're doing that is different is that they have enforced savings for retirement, either through their company schemes or through their, their deductions in national insurance contributions from their salaries and things like that. So we do not have that as expats. We need to develop the discipline for doing that. It's a very important part of financial planning. It's one of the most intrinsic parts of anything we deal with as financial planners, okay? And the reason for that is quite simply that being able to afford to stop working whenever that might be in your life, okay, is likely to be, well, it probably is going to be the most expensive thing you're ever going to have to plan for. It's going to be more expensive than anything else. And with longevity increasing, this is a major kind of factor that people are going to face down the line. So I've got some tips here for people on what to do if perhaps you're behind and you're one of those people that need to catch up. Is start small, because if you try and start with something big, the chances are you'll fail pretty quickly and it'll be very difficult to stick to. So start just by putting a small amount by each month. It's about developing a mindset and developing the self-discipline and forming the habit. And once you've done that and you're on track, you'll very quickly be able to accumulate wealth. Okay. You need to make sure you're paying regularly, not just here and there. So this is something that, requires a commitment over a long period of time, because you're going to hopefully be retiring for a long period of time and you're going to need to be able to sustain that. Okay. Pay yourself first. So, don't try and save whatever is left at the end of each month after you've spent all your outgoings. That won't work, because you'll always find something to spend money on. The best thing to do is save the money first as soon as you receive it, and save a fixed amount if you can, okay? And try and save it for the long term. If you need to dip into it beforehand, you can do, but try to have a long-term view and do not procrastinate, because the more you procrastinate, the more imminent this eventual deadline will be of you're not having enough money to retire, and it will become a vicious circle, because that will become so daunting that you'll just want to procrastinate even more. So the worst thing to do is just bury your head in the sand over this. Just face it and deal with it and start moving in the right direction. Now, there are some tools that I've attached here so that you don't have to, speak to a third party if you don't want to. You can very privately just click these links. And one of the tools is the Office of National Statistics cost of living. They publish this every year to say what the average household cost of living are in the UK. So you can use this as a resource. And there's resources for many other countries if you're planning to live in Spain or Ireland, or I'm planning Italy. So it depends on where you want to live. You can just kind of gauge it. And now there is a cost of living calculator in here. It's a fairly detailed cost of living calculator. So it, I believe, is as comprehensive as it's going to get. So I think if you fill that out with absolute kind of honesty, then you're going to get a fairly good indication of what your living costs are going to be. And you can even use it, obviously, to understand your living costs today, because a lot of people have got no idea what they're spending every month. And then I've got a retirement calculator. This will help you basically identify whether you're already ahead, whether you're already behind, and if you are behind, what gap you need to bridge, and how much you need to save or invest or whatever you do to bridge that gap. And bear in mind today, when we're talking about investments and retirement planning and things like that, we're not talking necessarily about old-fashioned pension schemes where you put the money in and it's locked in until 60 or 65, and then you take it out every year and pay tax on it. There are all sorts of different types of things that you can save money into or invest into to generate a retirement income. And that's all you need to do. You need to have enough assets paying you a recurring income to be able to live, and then you'll be able to give up work. And again, so many people I've met with over the years have told me, oh, no, I'm going to work till I'm 60, I'm going to work till I'm 70, I'm going to work till I'm 80. But all sorts of things happen. People lose their loved ones, people lose their jobs, and they're unable to get another job at the same career level. And then they're unable to get back into the same type of career path that they were in before. People have to repatriate sooner than they expect. There's health issues that many people face. So we can't take these things for granted. We've got to do something about it now. This is the moral of the story here. So that's pretty much it from me tonight. I have gone over a bit. I'm going to do the Q&A now. We've got some really good questions here. So the first question I want to ask, and it's a very good question here. The attendee's not put his or her name down, but it's asking whether or not you need to live in the UK when you retire to receive the state pension. The answer is you do not need to live in the UK to receive your state pension. Okay. Now, depending on where you live, your state pension will either be paid normally with normal cost of living increases from the date you retire. So this includes anywhere in the UK, EEA, a lot of the Commonwealth countries. For countries that are not in that group, let's say you're going to retire in Thailand, for instance. A lot of people go and retire out there. Your state pension will not benefit from cost of living increases after you meet the normal retirement date. So if you're retiring at 67, whatever your state pension is in that year, you're going to be fixed with that for the rest of your life. Okay, so that's the only thing. But apart from that, you can fill in a form. Again, if you go through those links to that pension centre that are embedded in this presentation, the form to be able to do that is there, and you can instruct HMRC to pay your state pension, monthly or weekly or annually or biannually or whatever you want to any account you want to. And if it's an overseas account, then so be it. Okay, so that's no issue whatsoever. So this is why it's amazing. I mean, you may have no intention of ever going back to the UK. Like me, you may have no intention of paying any tax that you can avoid if you can avoid it in the UK. I mean, this is what we help people with all the time is tax planning for retirement. So, it doesn't matter about your tax status, your residency status, anything. Okay, this is an entitlement that you have as somebody who has qualified prior to you becoming an expat, and it's your right as a British citizen. Now, the next question I've got here is, can we claim estate benefits if we retire abroad? Does the government state has to be paid straight into your bank account? Yes, so it's the same. Now you can ask for it to be paid by cheque or to a bank account in your name anywhere in the world. We can help you at Holborn to set up an offshore account in the Channel Islands. Why would we do that? Well, because it's still falling under they're the Crown Protectorate countries. So the law is practically the same as UK common law. The regulatory protection is the same pretty much as the UK. However, there's they're tax-free jurisdictions for income and capital gains tax, and if you're non-resident, then you don't have to declare anything to HMRC. But the benefit of you having an account there, if you're receiving money from the UK, is that you can receive it through the normal back system. So, for instance, I've got an account with Lloyd's Lloyd's, it's not Lloyd's, TSP anymore. In the Isle of Man, you just fill in your sort code, account number, set up a BACS transfer. You can set up a direct debit if you want to pay from there. It's a very easy and efficient way of doing it. Now, the next question is relating to, can you apply online? No, you still need to complete this form. So this is this CF83 form is required to pay the voluntary contributions and to top up any shortfalls. And so you've got to go about it this paper-based way. And you also, you know, if you want to go for the Class 2 national insurance contributions, it has to be done online. The only exception to this is if you're already registered with HMRC under the self-assessment. So let's say you're renting out homes in the UK, for instance, and you do self-assessment. You can elect to pay your national insurance contributions through your self-assessment when you submit that. Okay. So hopefully that's answered that question. Now, the next question comes from Rich, and he's asking if you have a family member in the UK, can they be the agent and act on your behalf? They can't be an authorized agent with HMRC. They have to meet certain criteria, but you can definitely put their contact address and that down as your point of contact. So if you want to do the correspondence through someone in the UK, your brother or sister or someone like that, you can definitely do that. Okay. But unfortunately, that you're not going to be able to appoint them as an agent because they have to meet certain requirements, because these people are able to act on your behalf as in relating to other matters as well, relating to your tax and things. So they've got to be a suitably qualified person. So usually it's a chartered accountant or an HMRC registered tax advisor. Okay. Neil has raised a question that I've had from so many people since I've been doing these webinars, and it's a very good one, Neil. He's asking if he's already paying Class 3 voluntary contributions, can he switch to Class 2, and can he recover any overpayment of Class 3? With regards to the first part of the question, the answer is yes, and you should try and do this as soon as possible. Okay, if you're not, if it's not required that you pay Class 3 because you're eligible for Class 2, then you need to inform HMRC, and you want to do this because obviously it will save you a huge amount of money. With regards to the second point about recovering any overpayment, I've never heard of anyone ever being able to do this, unfortunately. So, I mean, so far, it's many years I've been helping people with this. I've not known anyone who's been able to recover any overpayment there, unfortunately. So, but hopefully that will help you going forward, Neil, especially if you've got a few years till you reach retirement. So Candice has asked a question. Can you clarify the maximum number of years you can contribute in? Is it capped at 10 years or can we pay more? For instance, I've worked in the UK for 7 years and all other years abroad in the UK, sorry, the UAE and France. So Candice, let's just cover this again. Hopefully it will answer your question. So the number of years was capped at 6 years. So you would only be able to backdate the preceding 6 years of contributions. Okay, and then in 2020, HMRC opened it up back to the tax year 2006 to 2007. Okay, so as of now, up until 31st of July, you can actually backdate 16 full years of pension and top up back to 2006. If you missed years from before 2006, that's it. There's nothing you can do about it, unfortunately. Okay. Now, after the 31st of July 2023, you're going to only be able to backdate for 6 years again. So when I was talking about losing out on 10 years, it's the 10 years from 2006 to 2016 that are currently at stake. And next year it will be obviously from 2006 to 2017 and so on. Okay. Now, if you can afford to top up the last 16 years in one go, then nothing like it, because you obviously every year the state pension contributions go up in line with inflation, just like the state pension benefit goes up. Okay. There isn't a question here about completing both forms. So I'm assuming that the ambiguity there was because I mentioned the form NI 38 and then CF 83. So just to clarify, the last 2 pages of NI 38 actually are CF 83, and that's all you need to complete. So the preceding 30-odd pages of NI 38 are just giving you the guidance notes, given all different scenarios and things like that. Okay, so you don't need to. That's why I put the CF 83 form separately, but it's actually part of the NI 38 form. I just put it separate so people could just cut straight to the chase, basically, and not mess around with all the other stuff because it's not important. So hopefully that clarifies that question. Okay, so Sarah is asking if she had been paying Class 2 contributions since living in the UAE, what is the most she can pay, or should she be topping up? Well, yeah, if you've moved here and you've been paying ever since you came, and you had no breaks in national insurance contributions, you wouldn't have anything to top up. So my advice to you would just be to continue paying Class 2 national insurance contributions going forward until you get to 35 years, and then you'll have reached your full state pension entitlement. So hopefully that makes sense. Got another question here from Janet about completing the form. Is it an issue if you don't have a UK address? Probably, Janet, yes. So if you don't have a UK address and it's a bit difficult getting correspondence, I would suggest that you either ask a family member or something if you could use their UK address for correspondence, or you nominate someone to act as an agent on your behalf. But you do need to have a UK address, and you also need to confirm certain details about UK addresses and things like that to get through the government gateway system as part of the security checks and register if you're not already registered. So it can be an important factor, and that's why if somebody is unable to pass through and get their government gateway ID, then they're gonna either have to go about it all the paper-based way, okay, or they're going to just, the simplest thing for them to do is nominate someone to do it for them on their behalf. Okay, so there is a question here from an anonymous attendee saying, can you top up your state pension if you've never worked in the UK? Well, you can, all right, under Class 3 voluntary contributions, provided you are a British national and you do have a national insurance number. So it may be that, you know, your parents are from the UK and they moved out here, and you were born here and everything, but you went back to the UK to study, and then you came back here, and then you moved off to the US or something. You're not going to have any contributions under the PAYE system or any type of contributions. So you're not going to qualify for Class 2 contributions. But you may be able to qualify for the Class 3 national insurance contributions, which will cost you a bit more, but they're obviously still a lot less than you pay under PAYE system. Okay. So Michael is asking about a question on NI 38 is asking when you will leave the UAE. What if you sorry, I don't mean to say UAE, I mean UK. What if you've already left the UK? Well, you put the date of your last national insurance contributions on this CF83 when you were living in the UK and your last employer's details, and you complete it like you've already left. So just disregard that. It can be used for both purposes. There's a question here about somebody in the US right now paying Social Security contributions since 2016. Can they also top up their UK state pension from 2016 to 2023? The answer is yes, as long as you meet the criteria and you previously worked in the UK for and made a minimum of 3 years of contributions, you can do so. And the US doesn't have a treaty with the UK over sharing of Social Security responsibility. So you essentially can get UK entitlement and US entitlement simultaneously. So there is no issue there at all. And actually, this is the main purpose of this webinar, is to introduce people to this concept because it's a very nice thing. Okay, so I'll take one final question and then we're going to wrap up. I know there are many, many more questions, but we've just passed 8 p.m. and I'm conscious of everybody's time. I still have quite a few people hanging on, so thanks for seeing us through to the end. The final question is about the benefit that someone will get for their spouse if they pass on. Does the state, can they leave the state pension to the spouse? The answer is no. Unfortunately, your state pension is your state pension. It's your entitlement. You can't, under the new state pension rules, you're not going to be able to leave your state pension to anybody else. It ceases on your demise, unfortunately. So I'm sorry to end the webinar on a more somber note, but we'll wrap things up for the day. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.